Is it showing on your end that it's recording?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And that's good. Okay. Okay, so can you see that and still hear me?
I can.
Okay, good. So our topic obviously is social class and everyday discrimination. And then I just wanted to point out a few of the big concepts that we are going to be covering. So we are covering social class, discrimination, and social conflict. And then one thing that I saw through a lot of my research was typically when you're talking about social class and discrimination, the marginalized population is going to be your lower and working classes, and then your oppressor is going to be your upper middle and your upper classes. And that's typically what most people would consider. So then another thing that I wanted to mention was the independent variables and the dependent variables. When we're talking about social class, a lot of the different articles and things I was looking at, they kind of base social status on different things. So one of them being wealth, one of them being like education levels. So do you just have high school or did you go to college, different things like that. And then also different careers. I don't know if that was similar in your research also, but that was big different things that were noted on different articles. And then the dependent variables are going to stem from the reports of discrimination based on those features of social status.
But I mean, a lot of the stuff that because we did separate research on our own, and
yeah,
it's very. I mean, first off, your slides are awesome, and they're better than mine.
Thank you.
For one. But secondly, they are very similar. Our research, that just shows a lot of the research on this is pretty unanimous because it is similar. I got similar stuff.
Yes, so. Good. So then I just found these 3 images that I thought worked really, really well in describing what we're talking about visually. So the first image on the left states social class, the ability to disguise an individual's unique ability. And I think that when we're labeling people in any manner, whether that's social class or not, we are removing their unique perspectives and experiences and characteristics that they have. So definitely when we're basing people on social class and limiting them, I definitely think that is something that comes up a lot with everyday discrimination. And then the second image is quit whining, it's the same distance. And whenever I stopped and looked at this image a little bit longer, I think most of us would say that the left lane would be the upper class and the right lane would be our lower and working classes. So although there are still obstacles that both people would have to go through to get to their end goal, it's going to look a lot different. So people that are in the upper classes may have smaller obstacles. Maybe they're a little bit easier to get over. Whereas whenever we're looking at the lower classes, not only are there more obstacles and more dangerous obstacles that need to be faced, but if you can see, she has a chain on her foot. So she's already being held back by things in her past that are preventing her from moving forward in the first place. And I think when we get so caught up in equality, sometimes we forget this type of thing here that this image is describing. And then, yeah.
Real quick, that picture is the best thing that you could find for this. Honestly,
yeah, that
sums up everything. And the fact that your analysis of it is perfect because I didn't even notice the ball and chain at first on her foot. And then you have there's an alligator. And this guy is basically, he's got 2 obstacles, but he's basically saying, hey, the same distance, stop whining, which kind of feels like a lot of the, wealthier elite people or in the upper class, that's kind of their justification and their excuses. Hey, it's the same distance, everybody can get there. Meanwhile, that's not totally true. The obstacles we face are totally different than being, handed down millions of dollars or billions of dollars or having to work for it with nothing.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
That picture is awesome. I don't know where you found it, but that is very.
Yeah, no, I saw it. I'm like, I have to use that. Yeah. And then the last one just represents something that I think we're all familiar with, and that's the rich keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer. So they're using anything in their power to make themselves richer, and then the poor really have no choice. They're limited to what options they have moving forward. So then another article that I reviewed was actually really interesting. It came from the Scientific American, and it basically says that Americans are fast to judge social class. And originally when I started reading it, I'm like, oh, is it based on their houses, or is it based on their careers, or how much education they have? But they actually had 5 studies in this article that said that they are able to distinguish social class based solely on how someone speaks, not what the content of someone's speech is. So they actually had people say, and one of them, they had people say 7 words, and participants were able to correctly identify the speaker's college education 55% of the time. So that's more than just normal like chance or guessing.
No,
I think that's really interesting. Yeah, 7 words, and they could figure out what social class that you belong to based on your education.
That's actually incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually believe it, but it's almost like insane. It's fascinating.
Yeah. And then another study that they did for they brought in like job interviewers that had recognized like all these candidates. So they brought in like 200, 300 people, and they recognized just by speech alone. And sometimes it wasn't even listening to a video recording of them speaking. Sometimes it was just their speech written out on paper. And they judged the higher class candidates from only their speech is more competent, a better fit for the job, and more likely to be hired. They also awarded them a higher starting salary and a larger sign-on bonus. So I think a lot of us rely on our jobs every single day. That's how we make our money. That's how we survive. So already coming off people that do this for a living and they're judging you based on social class, I think that kind of destroys the promise of like equal opportunity that you always hear about. Because if they're already telling you based on the actual social class they belong to that they're going to give someone that's in a higher, position a job versus someone who may do just as well from a lower class, I think that's definitely discrimination right there.
It happens probably a lot more than people think, I think. I mean, the other forms of discrimination are so much more glaring, like, race and genders, because they're huge.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
I mean, they're going to be more like glaring to us than social class because, I mean, they're all messed up in their own way.
Yeah.
But social class, I mean, people I'm sure like ever since we researched this, I never really thought about it as much until researching it. And like, you see the people, like imagine if somebody came, I don't know, in like a certain type of outfit, farmer's outfit, I don't know what it is, or spoke a certain way and didn't speak the same way. The person's automatically going to assume that they came from a lower class, and automatically that's it. They never had a chance in the first place because of the way they spoke, or, how they dressed, or, how, just, a lot of the time, I think a lot of jobs are judged on social class.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with that. And it's just crazy that it's something that we all kind of like look right past and don't even recognize a lot of the time. And that's a lot of what everyday discrimination is. It's not necessarily something that we see right away or it's talked about in the news a lot. So I definitely think that's important.
Yeah.
And then I also found this chart, and it was from a peer-reviewed academic journal titled "In This Together, Doing and Undoing Inequality and Social Class Divides." And I thought it was just very interesting, this chart that they came up with. And they even said in the article, people do not live outside social systems, and that social systems operate only with the involvement of the participants. So if all of us like unanimously agreed that we weren't going to base people on social class or label them, like it would just go away. Like there's not a starting point or an ending point that keeps this cycle going. It's something that like we can do something about. And as you can see in this chart, they have people with more education, status, money, and power, and those with less. And there are consequences that come with both. So I thought it was very interesting to kind of see it from like both like an upper class standpoint and a lower class standpoint. So even just on this left-hand side of the chart, you can see that the self, cognition, motivation, emotion, physical health and well-being, relationships, and the in-group and out-group, those are all like impacted. And when you break it down, there's both kind of macro and micro level, different principles that are coming into play here, because those that have more education, status, money, and power fear losing that independence and that control and that power. And then the lower classes are targets of prejudice and discrimination. and they're more likely to experience fear, anger, and helplessness. And I just think that, seeing this scientific backup data proving everything that we've been talking about, I just think that that's something that we all need to take a really hard look at and apply it to our own situations.
Yeah, in a capitalist society, the upper class needs the lower class. I mean, they need them, but there is they won't exist without them almost, in a way. Like, they need to have the bottom of the pyramid needs to be just, filled. I mean, straight up the pyramid is a perfect example of, capitalism, basically. And like, that's, I mean, it's hard to change because of that, because we are in a capitalist society. So there are changes we can make, obviously, but makes it difficult because of the structure of our society.
Yeah.
So.
And then I also found another website. It was inequality.org, and there are a ton of different charts and graphs on it, an abundance of data. And this one here actually shows that 3 men own as much as the bottom half of Americans. So 330 million Americans, the bottom 50% of them, like 3 people, like obviously there is inequality if you can see this and prove that. And I just think that that's mind-blowing that 3 people can like have that much wealth that is covering 50% of Americans. Like, that just blew my mind when I saw this.
I got it there. I also, one of my slides is similar. I got like some of the same, I mean, it's not the exact same thing, it's in different numbers, but like different, like basically the top 1% own this, the top 10% own this, but like, it is astonishing when you see, I mean, this is crazy. I didn't even see this. This is insane. The fact that there's how many people in the world? I mean, in America, 600 million or 650?
Yeah, like a ton. Yeah.
3 people own that much of the wealth in our country. Is like, it's amazing that, honestly, that you would think in history people revolt in situations like that, but not. I mean, which, trust me, I'm not saying revolution is not a good concept, but it is, some type of change needs to be made to correct that, because that is just not okay in my mind.
Yeah, not in mine either. And I saw another graph that I didn't actually put in this presentation, but I believe they're paying like the same amount of taxes as they would have been paying in like 1953. So their taxes that they're paying are like nowhere near, and the poor are having to pay more taxes. It's crazy.
That's literally, that creates such a strain.
Yes.
And that's so true. They have so many tax loopholes and so many different things that they can get out of in the taxes that, like, I read something about that recently, different people, and they're blaming, well, these are the tax laws, so it's not our fault, but like, they need to change the tax laws then. Something has to, because that is not okay, because somebody that's working $10 an hour now has to pay significant money of their paycheck to cover up for the billionaires, which, I mean, if you say it out loud, it's ludicrous. Yeah,
absolutely. Yes. And then even in our own community, these are some of the things that I have noticed. I live in a community that has a lake. So if you live there, you're automatically like, you're the rich people. You stay away from all the farming communities. And we're like 10 minutes from each other. We're all human. And I just think that it's crazy that we are discriminating every single day just on simple things about like the area that we live, even though it's like 10 minutes apart, or what we do for a living. It just blows my mind. And, while it wasn't right of me, and I've learned from my own actions, I've caught myself, discriminating against people in my community also. Like, we own a farm stand. So one of our customers that came, they show up every time in a new car. It's always the sporty, fancy, expensive cars. And I automatically assumed in my head that they have all this money. They live in this like huge mansion. And then I come to find out that they live in like a house like mine. So like, just right there, I have caught myself doing it. So not only seeing other people do it, but catching myself do it, I think is an important lesson for all of us, that once we know better, that we should do better, and we should catch ourselves in our mistakes and try and grow and be better humans, whether it's about social class and everyday discrimination or not. So,
I mean, that's the reverse type of discrimination. That's interesting you brought it up, because I didn't even think about it, but like, that's almost like, I definitely I grew up, middle class, I would say, and then I became, poor over time, and then I got money. I've been poor and middle class and upper middle class. I've been all throughout a lot of the classes in my life. And when I was very poor, I definitely discriminated against people that were above me also in the hierarchy. Like I immediately thought certain things of them that very well might not be true. I mean, it's a generalization.
Yeah.
There's discrimination on both ends.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, it's easier to look at people with power because they have power.
Yeah.
It's definitely, that's interesting to say that because it really is. Yeah, we all have to probably do better in terms of, generalizing people
Yeah.
without actually knowing them.
Yeah, definitely. And then I just had my references here. So I will stop my share.
That was really good. Honestly, I mean,
Thank you.
You covered so much of it. I'm going to do mine and run through it. But I mean, I don't know how long have we been on for right now? Just out of curiosity.
It's saying 28 minutes on mine, but I was on like 10 minutes before I needed to be on. So
Okay.
I think we're
All
okay.
right. All right. I don't want to take up, I don't know how much time the Max wants us to do this. So I'm gonna run through this. So let me share my screen. Hold on one second. Tell me if I am not technologically savvy that much. So do you see my screen or no?
I can see your home screen. I don't see the PowerPoint.
Okay. Okay. How about, oh, hit the wrong button. Okay. From beginning. Okay. All right. So I just did a very basic thing just to guide me in kind of in my discussion. I didn't put together like the most masterpiece of a PowerPoint. Yours was awesome though. Honestly, that is
Thank
like,
you. Yeah, yours looks good too.
I appreciate you. But anyway, everyday discrimination on social class based on social conflict theory. I just gave a brief definition of social class. It basically is a group of people within a society who possess the same socioeconomic status. We went over. I mean, there's different 5 different types of sociologists suggest that there's 5 different social classes. There's the upper class, and this is I rank these in my own opinion, obviously. Who's the most discriminated against, but we did just bring up that there is reverse discrimination too. But I think in order, the upper class, the elite, the upper middle class, lower middle class, working class, and then poor. I mean, and the poor, obviously are probably the most discriminated against, but also the working class. From my own experience, that is where I would classify myself. I've been there for a while, and like once you're in that class, it's hard to get out of it, to be honest with you, because you're paycheck to paycheck, or you're up had 2 paychecks. And the way that the system is set up, unless you have, it's harder when there's more obstacles. That picture really spoke to me that you had, because I know people that have gotten through this, like, transformation much easier because of, easier, parents that had money or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So I also put a picture here. I found it basically an everyday discrimination, like I brought up in a capitalist system like we have here. There always will be inequality, I feel like, because many times the working poor do most of the work and the heavy lifting, but the wealthy elite upper class basically stand at the top of the pyramid and profit the most. And this is like an example of a picture I found basically showing that, they feed everybody at the bottom, and then the people above them, we eat for you, basically. They're eating for them while they feed them. The people above them, we shoot at you, and so on and so forth. And then you have the people at the top. I mean, that is, the money's at the top, and then the wealthy elite upper class right there. So that pyramid is really like defines social class to me straight down. There's 5 levels, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right down the line. And being at the bottom of the pyramid is extremely tough because you are working. It feels like sometimes you're working for other people to eat. And that is what this picture kind of depicts. So
Yeah.
it kind of spoke to me. I just gave a quick, we were focusing on social conflict theory. So I gave a brief definition. Basically, social conflict theory is a Marxist-based social theory, which argues that individuals and groups or social classes within society interact based on conflict rather than consensus. So social class and social conflict theory to me go hand in hand. It's an extremely important aspect of conflict theory because social conflict theory argues that different social classes within a society interact based on conflict. rather than consensus. So basically, let me tie this together here. Like Karl Marx believed that there were, hold on, my thing is blocking this real quick. Were two main social classes in capitalists. There's the capitalist and the workers. The workers sold their labor for wages while the capitalists owned the means of production. So the classes would remain divided and social inequality would always grow because of this. There's no, like, that is basically the conflict is the fact that you have, like your example, I'll give you an example, owner and renter was a good example. The renter will always be beneath the owner. The owner always will have the say. The renter has to follow directions. I mean, and it kind of goes in the same thing as workers, the CEOs of companies. It's just with that constant divide, it just will never. No, I don't mean to be pessimistic. I just think in the economic system that we have and the way that our society runs, I don't believe that dramatic change is possible. I mean, you would have to change the government, like the way over the economic system for that to happen, because it's just the way this is set up. It's set up bottom, so changing it is extremely tough. I mean, we all can do things better, but it takes, takes a big herd to change things. This is another picture I just found of, the people in the small family on the other side eating while all these people are one loaf of bread. They're trying to knock down the door because, social conflict theory also focused on the competition among groups over limited resources. So looking at it through social conflict theory, also social inequality. There's a saying, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. You also mentioned that. Social inequality refers to relational processes in society that have an effect on limiting or harming a group, social status, social class, and social circle. The system basically is set up so that the imbalance between the wealthy and the poor remain in place. I'm just kind of, it's still back on what I said. I'm almost just, making this statement louder, I guess. And this picture is pretty cool. I thought you got this guy with basically all the money, Jeff Bezos and all the other people. He's just standing on the scale and causing a huge divide. The unbelievable imbalance. As of 2021, the top 10% of the United States held 69.8% of the U.S. net worth. Now, I didn't even get to the three guys because that is mind-blowing, to be honest with you. These stats that I found are pretty interesting, but to see the 3% the three guys is nuts. But if you look here, the top 1% hold 32% of the total net worth. So it's not even just three guys. Even just the 1% would hold a third. I mean, that math just doesn't add up. I mean, the bottom 50% of U.S. residents only hold 2% of all the wealth. So that's where you go down to the bottom of the social classes. Money usually does define social class, not solely. I mean, there's a lot of other factors that go into social class. I mean, our culture, a lot of things. People discriminate on people for so many different reasons. But a lot of the time, in the wealth, it does kind of have a play on the social class, and seeing that the 2%, that 2% to me is that's like the ultra poor almost in a way, and that's the 50%. That's half. So the poorest people in the country are half of us, which is just, again, it's 2% is just, it's not okay in my opinion. And this is another little picture here I got of this guy basically taking the money and letting everybody fall off the cliff, which is a metaphor for kind of what's happening. So that is pretty much my slideshow. I didn't really, I'm glad that yours was so much better than mine because we did get to discuss a lot. I mean, it harped on the same things, I think. I think me and you probably have similar viewpoints, I think. I'm not positive, but based on what you said, it was extremely informative. And I got a lot out of it, to be honest with you. I do appreciate everything you did.
Yeah, and I really like all the images. Those were really powerful.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. But I guess that's it. Okay. Thanks, Julie. Nice meeting you.
Yeah, you too.